What's up, everybody, and welcome to this special Season 2 edition of the Takeover. That's why we are in our second season. As you can see, we are in our new home. So the show is moving. We're here. I'm still your host of the most, all the way coast to coast. Not trying to boast, but I'm better than the butter you put on your French toast. And I'm Marcellus. And I'm sitting here as usual.
Should we continue with no name, or should I actually give my name this time?
Well, let's give him that.
All right. Well, you've been waiting for this moment for a while. My name is the embodiment of respect, Justus.
Okay, Justice. Well, anyway, we have a kind of a different show for you to start off season 2. Just a little slightly different, not very different, but we're gonna try to take a different spin on some things. And once again, we want to give out the disclaimer that these are our thoughts. So my thoughts are my thoughts, his thoughts are his thoughts, and together they're our thoughts, and not necessarily indicative of the thoughts of Kingdom of Heaven Ministry or Pastor Lonnie W. Brown or Lady Frances Brown. So if you don't like something we say, contact us, not them. But it's gonna be all good, so you're going to love it. Now I know you're gonna love these intro thoughts.
Am I now?
You know why I know?
How do you know?
Because we're coming out of somewhere you don't normally hear.
Okay.
Amos.
Amos.
No, just Amos.
Okay. Like Famous Amos?
Like, kind of.
Is it going to be as good as Famous Amos?
Better.
Oh,
all
okay.
Right. Just some intro thoughts, y'all, to get us stirred up and to get us something to base the show on. So Amos 5, verses 21 through 24. It says, I hate all your show and pretense, the hypocrisy of your religious festivals and solemn assemblies. I will not accept your burnt offerings and grain offerings. I won't even notice all of your choice peace offerings.
Away with your noisy hymns of praise. I will not listen to the music of your harps. Instead, I want to see a mighty flood, of justice. What does he say? Of justice, an endless river of righteous living.
Wow. So this is referring to Israelites, and you might, if you are a scholar of speeches, you might recognize verse 24 in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. He quoted this verse in his speech. But what we want you to pay attention to is God is not here for the pretense. He's here for justice and an endless river, it says, of righteous living. So that's what we want you to think about as we talk about where we're going today. If we had to give it a title today, it would be called The Right Stuff. The Right Stuff.
That reminds me of a song.
Yeah, me too. That reminds me of a song. I'm surprised it reminds you of a song, but it definitely reminds me of a song. So before we get into all that, though, let's talk about these current events and what's going on. And I tell you, COVID obviously is still a big issue here in our state too, Justice. We're starting to stabilize. We're starting to plateau, which is good. The governor is recognizing that things are starting to plateau, but she wants to keep the reins kind of tight so that we can get over the hump. Of course, not everybody's happy with that. So one of the businesses in northern Michigan is suing, which I found very interesting. So Frisk Orchards Farm Market has filed a lawsuit against Governor Whitmer over her mask executive order. They don't want to wear no mask.
Well, obviously. And I'll tell you this. Yesterday, I was at a convention, and I was able to give a speech, about my candidacy for school board. And let me tell you this. Not a single person was wearing a mask at that convention. But, what was interesting, there was a handful of black people there, me included. We're all wearing masks. We're all like, what are y'all doing? It's just interesting.
It is interesting how, and obviously that's up in northern Michigan, Charlevoix to be exact. And their stance is that she doesn't have the legal right to do what she's doing, and because of that, they're fighting it instead of. And see, here's the thing, and this is key to what we're talking about today. Instead of not wearing or not wanting to wear a mask because it's not right, they want to be right in that, trying to prove she doesn't have the legal authority to make them wear. They say they recognize that the virus is real and it's dangerous, but we're fighting her legal rights here. And these are the kind of things that we're going to be talking about. That word right is going to come up a lot today. Um, Speaking of COVID, the mail, Justice.
The mail?
The mail has been so slow. USPS. I know you probably don't get a lot of mail.
No.
But if you order something and it comes USPS, I ordered something, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. It still hasn't come yet.
Wow.
But it got shipped the next day. So it wasn't the shipping source. It's stuck in this transit of the USPS. And we know that there's been a lot going on with the USPS, and supposedly President Trump is against the USPS, so he's blocking things. And did you know that the stimulus, the new coronavirus bill that has not been passed yet, has a portion of money to go towards the post office? However, President Trump in his speech said that he doesn't want to sign it with that provision in there because it will lead to mail-in ballot fraud.
Possibly, yeah.
So he's basically saying that the Democrats are pushing that so that there'll be some mail-in fraud. Not so more people can absentee vote because of COVID and people are going to want to be at home voting instead of coming out, but because he's assuming that there's going to be this fraud. Though there's been studies done, and a professor did a study, and he found only over a 4-year span, he found only 31 cases where there was specific fraud out of over 1 billion ballot study. That's nothing. That's minuscule, right? That's
right.
31 out of 1 billion is literally negligible. So there's really no basis for it. You're gonna like this though.
Am I?
Yes, because check this out.
Okay.
You know how I just gave you all that spiel about how President Trump is fighting against USPS for about mail-in ballots? But guess who filled out a mail-in ballot?
Who?
President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump at their home address in Florida. They requested a mail-in ballot for the Florida primaries.
Wow.
Remember how that scripture talked about hypocrisy? Well, here you go, right in the flesh.
In the living flesh.
In the living flesh. And that's a lot of times I think President Trump gets criticized for things he doesn't necessarily say clearly, but this was very clear what he said. I didn't make any of that up. Like, he said that in an interview. You can look it up. Google is your friend. We just found out a new name in the race.
A new name. Long time coming to see who this guy was going to pick for his vice president. But, well, I just gave his name away. Joe Biden has picked Kamala Harris as his running mate. You know what was interesting, though, to me in the debates, about Kamala? She's just a no-nonsense woman. She looked at Joe with some fiery eyes, like, man, I do not like you. And then, she was picked, and she's like, oh, I love Joe Biden. This is great. She didn't call him a racist directly, but she implied that he was, which, this is kind of interesting relationship between those two. So I hope they can kind of work out their differences and really, if he is elected, which it is seeming like he will be, hopefully they can work together and really do a good job.
Well, certainly, she's certainly a career politician. I'll put it like that. And so I think she'll bring some political sharpness to his candidacy that he might not have inherent in him. He seems like more of an aloof guy she seemed like she will bite your head off if you look at her the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? And that's not a knock at Kamala. I can appreciate the history of her being the first black woman to be in this position. That's worth talking about. That's worth mentioning. But she has some things in her political past that she has to answer for, and that's okay. When you're in a political race, you're going to have to answer for the way you voted, the way you legislated when she was the AD in California. She's going to have to answer for those things that she did. But I think we need to step back and actually do the research and check out her voting record since she's been in Senate. Check out how those numbers have been from her time in California. As far as the big hangup is marijuana convictions, right? So let's look at that from the beginning of her tenure to the end of her tenure. I think it would surprise you to see how those numbers went down continually. Again, I am not pushing either way. All I'm saying is let's step back, let's research, let's make a conscious decision to really, when we exercise our right in November, let's exercise it with a mind full of knowledge because we've taken the time to study the candidates and make an informed decision. I won't tell you who to vote for, but I'll tell you shouldn't vote for
Well, I'll tell
Donald
you who
Trump.
to vote for. I'll tell you who not to vote for. Kanye West.
Definitely don't vote for Kanye West. That goes without saying. But have you heard the name Cannon Hennett?
No, I have not.
You have not?
No. Is that a basketball player?
No, Cannon Hennett is a 5-year-old young boy
Oh.
that recently lost his life. Was shot
Oh.
and killed in cold blood in the head by a man. So he's a young 5-year-old, white 5-year-old. The man was I don't know how old he was, black guy. Um, there appears to be no motive at this point. Nobody. There were neighbors. He had eaten at their home just prior to that. The young boy's sisters were out there and seen it, so they're obviously going to have some trauma to deal with. It's just a sad situation, and we want to continue to lift up that family because no parent should have to bury their child, especially at 5 years old. Cannon certainly deserved an opportunity to live his life, and that young man took it from him, and that's terrible. I don't care how you slice it; it is awful. However, all of these memes and things coming out where people are saying, "Well, what about this? Just because a black guy shot a white kid, there's no protest, or why are no athletes kneeling for Cannon? What about Cannon? Say his name." They're basically borrowing all of the Black Lives Matter movement sayings. I even seen a meme with George Floyd picture on the top with the Derek Chauvin and young Cannon with his killer's picture on the bottom and said, "Why does his life matter and his don't? Where is Black Lives Matter now?" What do you think about that?
Well, certainly, I do believe that the situation is a horrible situation. Um, I have never buried my child, because I don't have any children. Mrs. Brown is nowhere to be seen at this moment. But once she's found, we'll pick up the pace. Anyways, but we did bury Casey Ray, and so I kind of understand what this family's going through. Um, this situation is not a good situation. But here's the thing. Here's what I think. I think that. So let me ask you this: Did this man, was he apprehended and arrested and charged with first-degree murder?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here's the thing. Justice has already justice has already been served for this family. Now, you know what would be wrong if he got a real good lawyer and he was able to get him off with manslaughter in the second degree, which is a 15-year felony. You get promoted, I mean, not promoted, but probation, parole, put on parole. You could be out in 7 years. That would be wrong because that's not justice served. The difference here and there's some things I don't agree with, but this is one thing I do agree with, is that this man that killed George Floyd, he got fired, but he didn't receive a sentence that was just. He wasn't, the system didn't treat that situation like it treated this situation. And so what we have to strive for is for the system to treat every one of these situations as the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In a nutshell.
So what you're saying is the protests, the kneeling, are about injustices. So if there was no injustice in young Cannon's situation, there was a crime, a heinous crime. There hasn't been an injustice. There's really no reason to protest. There's nothing to protest at that point if you're protesting injustice. And that's what people are trying to make situations equivalent that are not equivalent. And that's lazy thinking. That's lazy thought process. And that shows either that you're lazy or that you have a hint of racism inside you, because you looked directly past the facts and the truth of the situation and you went right to, oh, if that was a white man and a black child, we would be protesting, not if he got arrested and charged with a proper crime. And you know what they still haven't done, Justice?
What?
They still haven't arrested the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. Now say her name. That's what we need to focus on. Let's get some justice for Breonna. How about that? Now, that's it. I know you don't know about sports, but I do know what you know about.
What do you know that I know about?
You know about having an issue with the praise team.
I don't have issues with the praise team.
Oh, you got issues. You talk about them A and B selections, and y'all haven't been quite right ever since. Well, I'll tell you what, folks. Justice was leading the song this past service, and well, let's just say they weren't on the same page again.
A wonderful change, a wonderful change has come on.
Boy, they got you again, huh?
We need to. Didn't we have a discussion? We had a discussion.
Yeah, we had a discussion that y'all need to rehearse a little bit more.
No, that was not the discussion.
Don't get mad at me because I'm just playing the video. What's done in the dark will come to the light.
Anyway,
what are we talking about today? What are we talking about? What are we talking about, Justin?
Okay. Well, we're talking about, we're trying to answer some questions here like we've been doing. It seems that being right seems to be the chief concern of many in our society today. They seemingly don't care who gets stepped on or over in an effort to prove how right they are, or their rightness, if you will. We want to know the distinct differences are between having rights, being right, or doing what's right. So which one is the one that we need to strive for?
Wait, so having rights, being right, or doing what's right? What do y'all think? What does that mean to you in the chat, in the comment section? What does that mean to you? Which one is the goal? What should we be looking for? What should we be shooting for in our daily lives? What's the goal? You tell us. So, Justice, I know you are the political guy. So, let's talk about what does it mean to have rights.
Okay.
So, I think we need to go back. Let's just go back to one of our founding fathers of this republic. One of those documents that founded it all. And let's talk about what does it mean?
Are you talking about the document that our great Thomas Jefferson wrote?
Well, you can call him great if you want to. I'm just going to call him Thomas Jefferson.
Okay. In the Declaration of Independence, and I won't go through the history of it.
Yeah, let's not.
Okay. So we're just going to read it to you.
Give him a taste. Give him a taste.
Give him a taste of it. See, he won't let me get enough political time. You see this? He gets time for his A and B selections, but I can't read the whole Declaration. We can't even read the whole Constitution. Anyways, getting started, our great Thomas Jefferson starts with this line. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the courses which impel them to the separation
or causes, but that's okay. Now here's the key. Where this is the part we all focus on, but we usually only read like the first line. So it goes on to say, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal." We've all heard that. They are endowed by their Creator, with capital C, with certain unalienable rights. I find it very interesting that they capitalize rights and make it very formal. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, here's the tricky part. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So that's the people. That wherever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Now that's a mouthful, I will admit. That's a lot. But let's just break it down. What does that mean? Because we're talking about having rights versus being right versus doing what right. So what does having rights actually mean? What does that mean to you, Justice, having these unalienable rights?
Well, I like to think of it like this. Back when this document was first written, the atmosphere was tense, kind of like how it is right now politically. They were severing ties with Great Britain. Great Britain did not like that. They didn't like being a part of it. And so they said, you know what? We're cutting ourselves off. That was a tense moment. And the rights stated in this document, they don't really mean anything if you can't perform them. And so we can have the right to life, but if we're not performing that right, like, we do drugs and stuff like that, we're infringing on our own rights. If somebody, comes over here and kills me, then they're infringing on my right to live, everyone. And when I say this, I mean every citizen of this country and every person on this planet has basic human rights, like the ones stated in the Declaration, right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But then in the United States, they put 10 more rights upon that, rights that were added by the Constitution. The right to bear arms, the right to free speech, the right to have an attorney present when you're getting arrested and at court, have an attorney appointed to you. Those are some other rights. And then there's some rights guaranteed to us, and some laws and some things that have been passed over the years that became a right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that's what it means to me.
Okay.
And needless to say, we are a free people. When you look at people around the world, America, we're free in America. However, sometimes it doesn't feel like we're free because, like what I think Dr. Brown, my poppy, we'll just be formal tonight, my poppy. He quotes the scripture from Proverbs. When the righteous rule, people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people mourn. And the wicked people have been mourning. Wicked people have been leading, and so that's kind of why I think that we got so much division in this country now. It's because there's some wicked people in there somewhere. We got to find them and get them out of here.
They're not hard to find. They're pretty easy to find. But I agree with you, man. I think comparatively, when you compare the U.S. to other countries, it's pretty easy to see that this is a great place to be in terms of being free, in terms of having an ability to capitalize on your gifts, to come from nothing to something, that type of thing. Whereas in some places that wouldn't be possible. But I think the comparison intra-country, inside the country with one another shows us that having rights doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. And that's the unfortunate part. Sometimes I say it like this: sometimes having rights seems hollow at best. It seems kind of empty. For example, there was a case that a lot of people don't know about. We know about the Minneapolis Police Department because of George Floyd, but before that, I believe back in 99 maybe. Don't quote me on the year, but there was a couple of officers that had been fired for decorating the Christmas tree at the police department with some racial items. So I'm talking about items like Newport cigarettes, liquor, police caution tape wrapped around there, and various other things. Clearly, trying to portray that these are black things, right? So they were fired for you can't have known racists on your staff, right? That's not the police. However, an arbiter has very recently overturned one of the officers firing.
Oh, that's a fumble.
That's a fumble. That's a fumble.
See, I got it right this time.
Get him some glue. He overturned one of the officers firing, and so now he has a job again. Now, I don't know if he's going to get back pay, but I can tell you, if this man gets back pay, it is going to be a whole nother set of protests going on in Minneapolis. There may be, just from this decision, I know that the leadership of the city is unhappy with this arbiter's decision. But I say that to say this. If the situation were reversed, it'd be very hard to believe, or for me to believe, that a black man would have gotten that second opportunity, that second chance. And I know people are going to say like, oh, it's not always black and white. No, it's not always black and white, but a lot of times it is. We can even look, if I looked to the world of sports and you look in coaching, it's very, 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 first of all, it's very few black coaches as it is, especially in, let's just say, football. But the amount that don't get a second opportunity after they maybe didn't have the best season at one spot, and they never get another chance. And this is something that's prevalent throughout our society. So what does it mean to have rights? I mean, we have rights, but if you have rights, but you don't have people protecting those rights, for you. You don't have lawmakers, judges, lawyers, police officers, etc., protecting you with those laws. It's hard to say that it means the same to you. And then we got to remember this last thing, just as about that. When this was written, guess who was not free?
African Americans.
That's right. So they weren't really talking about us. Let's just keep it all the way 100. But I do have a story. I want to tell you a story. You tell me what you think about the story, Justice. So, did you know there was a Memphis, Michigan, by the way?
I did not.
So, I was in Memphis, just outside of Memphis.
He was in Memphis.
Michigan, not Memphis, Tennessee. So, I'm in there, and it's kind of late. Let's say 10 something at night, right? Stopped in to get a snack. I was putting some gas in the truck. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to go get a snack. They have a Subway inside the gas station, right?
Wow.
It was still open. So I was like, bet. I'm going to go over here to Subway. So I'm feeling good, getting my sandwich. And I'm ordering my sandwich and, joking with the workers and things like that. So right when I got down to the pay window, a lady came up to me and she was less than happy. So she was yelling and she was asking me, was I driving a truck with a trailer? And so since I had just gotten off of Lake St. Clair with my boat, I had the trailer connected to my truck. So I'm like, yeah. And so she proceeded to go off and just yelling about how I went around her daughter, who's not even 16 yet, around a no passing lane, around a curve. You could have killed us all. Mind you, she has her little son with her, probably 5-6 years old tops, and going off, man. So she yelling all this and she probably, how we 6 feet apart. She was not 6 feet apart from me. I'll just put it like that. And she wasn't right in my face because that wouldn't happen. Lord knows that wouldn't happen. But she was close enough to where she was pointing at me, and I could have reached out and grabbed her finger. I put it like that. And so she was just going off. Now, mind you, it wasn't me that did. I don't know what she's talking about. So the whole time I'm thinking, I don't know what she's talking about. So I looked around me. I looked behind me first to see there was a husband, boyfriend, significant other, whatever, son behind me, and she was setting me up for an onslaught. There wasn't anybody behind me, so I kind of relaxed a little bit, because I should mention that in this city of Memphis, my mom and my dad and me were probably the only people of color in the city. So
interesting.
I didn't want to obviously be this big black guy that's looked at as attacking this small white woman with a small child. So I didn't want to respond aggressively. So she was doing all this yelling, and I just said, that wasn't me. So you wasn't you, it wasn't you? No, it wasn't me. And so her not really believing me, she just, you telling me you sure, blah, blah, blah. Look, it wasn't me, And she was like, well, all right, well, I'm just gonna leave it at that then. And she stormed out. And the lady that was taking my order at Subway, she was a relatively young lady, poor lady. And she was like, I am so sorry for that, on her behalf, I want to apologize. Like, you don't have to apologize for her. That you didn't do anything. But she was so taken back by it. She had forgot my order. She didn't know. I mean, it was literally sitting in front of her, but she didn't know what to put in the register to charge me for. So I had to tell her to order and stuff like that again. So what do you think about that? What do you think?
You know what? First of all, what is a underage teenager doing driving at 10 o'clock at night? My curfew is like 9 o'clock. What are you doing? That's the thing that caught me, was like, you let your daughter drive at 10 o'clock at night. But I know on social media there's Karen culture. You know, all these Karens out here. I want to speak to your man. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. And so I think this is kind of interesting. But I'm a pretty passive person. I think we can all agree that I would have handled that differently. Well, probably about the same. I wouldn't have thought about what you thought about, like, you need to back up. I probably would have been like, you know what? Okay. I probably would have just been like, you know what? Okay. All right.
Well, the
It
first
was
thing I
me.
thought about is it a guy behind me that's about to try to attack? That's the first thing I thought. I'm gonna be honest. And some of you know me well enough to know that that would be a bad idea. Let's just say there's a song that say, "You don't want my hand where my hip be at," if you know what I mean. So I'll just leave it at that. But the funny thing, man, is I posted it on Facebook, right? Just like that, just like I told you. And I I called her Karen. And for the
Karen.
most part, everybody was like, "Boy, you handled that better than me. You handled that better than me." But the reason why I'm telling you this story is because there was three people in particular that came on my page. Three people that I know. Um, One of them, I coached their son in basketball. One of them was just a mother that I know. I've talked to. I've known her for a long time, and all three were moms, right? So all three took the position of, well, I would have confronted if somebody, cut my daughter off and blah blah blah. I see it as a mom and this and that, and you gotta be careful because before you call people Karen, because it wouldn't have anything to do whether you was black, white, green, or whatever. And I was like, okay, so people really defending this because I called her Karen? Is that it? See this, and this is the thing that happens. We look past the racism into the protest, the way it's happening. We look past the transgression and into the name that they're called. And see, what I explained to her is, and you know me, I'm a writer, so she got a long Facebook post. But what I explained to her is this: Karen is a mindset. Karen is not a color. Karen is a mindset. It's a superior mindset. It's a elitist mindset. The idea that you think you can come check me because you have a right to, and this is what the lady, and this is why I brought this up. This is what the post said. The post said, well, I have a right to confront somebody. Well, you absolutely do have that right. You also got a right to deal with whatever response they give you. And luckily for her, I'm past the Marcellus from 30 years ago, because that wouldn't have been as passive, because I just had a different attitude back then. Mm-hmm. But so we get into the situation where we think because we have right, like, what was the plan? Think about it like this. Say it was me. Say it was me. What was her plan? What was she going to do? Beat me up? She was going to intimidate me into never passing somebody again? Is that her goal? I mean, what is your goal there? Folks, this is how people get messed up. This is how people end up getting into things that escalate and people getting hurt, people getting killed. Because let's just say there was a guy there that was supposed to be scaring me or whatever. And let's just say he doesn't know me very well. And he found out the hard way. Now, all of a sudden, we got a potential for a bloodbath. Let's just say my mom had gotten out of the truck and saw her talking to me like that. And my mom ain't going to just let somebody talk to her son any kind of way. That's just not going to happen. A woman, because she knows I can't do nothing, so she's not going to let that happen. So there's so many things that can go wrong. Why would you go express your road rage? You mad at him for passing her, but then you go into a road rage in response. It doesn't make any sense because you have the right to do so. And then guess what? She got outside and found out she was wrong. There was another truck and trailer that was parked just on the other side of the gas pumps.
Wow.
And so when I come out, she talking to my dad. I'm thinking she going off like she was going off with me. So I'm rushing out the store because I'm like, you ain't just gonna talk to my family in kind of way. But she is over there asking him to apologize to me.
Wow.
No, don't ask him to apologize. You come in here with that same gusto that you had and apologize. That's what you should have done. You should have brought your behind in there with that same effort you had to go off and come apologize. Now she did, when she saw me come out, she did back her car up and apologize. And you know what my response was? No worries. That's all I said. Because I'm bigger than that. I'm bigger than that. But my point is, we take this rights thing too far. Oh, I got a right to tell you, give you a piece of my mind. Yeah, you got a right to get whatever come back to you, though. That's the problem. And see, that's what we got to understand. So don't get these rights. Don't let having the right to do something get you messed up. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. That's what we want to make sure we put out there. Don't let that get you messed up. But there are some rights we need to talk about. We need to talk about what the kingdom says about rights. What are kingdom rights? Because if we look at those rights, we'll have a different response. So what are kingdom rights?
Kingdom rights are the right rights.
The right rights.
Get yourself right with the kingdom rights.
So why don't you write the right rights?
What?
Exactly.
Kingdom rights are the reasonable insistences, there we go, of guaranteed heavenly truth for success. And get this, rights, kingdom rights is the privilege, permission, and authorization to act. But get this, to act on behalf of heaven.
Okay.
For the expansion and the advancement of the kingdom of God, to experience and the enjoyment of a kingdom lifestyle. So when you talk about Karen, she had the right to do it, but those rights weren't on behalf of heaven. They were on behalf of her own personal agenda.
Yes, sir. And that's the key. That's the key. Are your rights the rights you feel like you have from the Declaration of Independence that belong to you, or are the rights that you have from God to act on his behalf that will have you act a different way? Because that R said reasonable. It's not very reasonable for you to come attack me. That doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? Like reasonable people wouldn't think that makes sense. And rational. And I know a lot of times when we get angry, we get irrational, and that's what happened to her. And again, she's blessed that I'm rational and that I've worked a long time on my attitude. But 3 keys of that is endorsement, privilege, and we're talking about privilege, endorsement from God, not because of your color. Entitlement, power, enforcement, pronouncement. Now when I say entitlement, that doesn't mean you're entitled and you're stuck up in that. No, we have power, we have privilege from God to act on behalf of heaven to guarantee success. That's the thing about it. We operate with heavenly truth, not just facts, truth. That's what will get us a success. And we'll talk about that a little bit different. But what does the word say about this? And this is going to bless you. John 14:12-13 says, I tell you the truth, anyone who believes in me will do the same works that I've done and even greater works, because I am going to be with the Father. You can ask for anything in my name and I will do it, so that the Son can bring glory to the Father. See, those are the rights we have. We can ask God for anything. What other rights do we have?
Well, in John 15:7, just going a little bit further down in that book, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. 15:7 says, but if you remain in me and my words remain in you, you may ask for anything you want and it will be granted. I don't know that country slang in there. Anything you want. You heard that?
Yeah. You act like you just got back from Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
And then 1 John, not St. John, but 1 John 5:14-15 says, and we are confident that he hears us whenever we ask for anything that pleases him. Remember, on behalf of heaven. And since we know he hears us when we make our requests, we also know that he will give us what we ask for. And these are the rights we have as Christians. These are the rights we have as kingdom people. Not just Christians, but kingdom people. And that's very important because we're talking about kingdom rights, right? And that's the thing we have to understand. Those are our real unalienable rights given to us by God, not by a group of men signing a document that really was only for a certain subset of the country. So think about that. Next time you think about I have the right to do something, consider that. What really are your rights? But see, when we talk about having rights, we got to talk about being right. Because see, a lot of people just stuck on being right, Justice. I want to be right. I'm right, so I can do this because I'm right, or I want to be right, and I'm gonna argue to death because I'm right. When arguing really not going to solve anything. You know, I think being right is so important to people because a lot of people are chasing what I call insta fame. They want to be social media influencers. They want to get their likes up and their followers up, and they're chasing that insta fame. So they want to be right. They want to win every argument. Now, don't get me wrong. If you come on my page, argue with me, oh, I'm winning. And I'm getting the last word. You know what I'm saying? That's just now. If you're on your page, you win. Or somebody else's page, I respect them. Don't come on my page doing that. But that's what a lot of people want to be right so bad. They're seeking followers, or they need some type of validation for themselves. Or I like to call it they try to get co-signers when something happens and they try to go put it on Facebook or somewhere so they can get people to say, "Oh, you know what? You're right." No, man, people don't even know the whole story, but you're just involving people in things they got no business being involved with. You know, so it's not the emphasis shouldn't be on being right. It shouldn't even be on having rights, but for some reason, those are the things we focus on. And like I said that earlier, that leads to lazy thought processes and short-sighted conclusion based on just facts and not truth, similar to what we talked about with the Cannon Hennett earlier. If you can have some facts, there's a fact that a crime was committed in both of those situations. The truth is, one situation brought justice, one has not. And so that is why they're different. So we talked about having rights. We talked about being right. And now we need to get to the key, the pinnacle. Doing what's right.
Absolutely.
Doing what's right is being righteous. That's what that is. Being righteous. What's righteous? Let's look at that. What is righteous?
Well, since you asked, kingdom righteous now is being regulated by integrity. We talked about that before. Integrity, grace, honor, truth, excellence, and order under spiritual law.
So there's some laws in the kingdom.
Yes.
There's some spiritual laws, not the Declaration of Independence. Those will tell you what you can and cannot do, rights you have. But how to be righteous, you need the spiritual law.
Exactly. And so righteous is a moral, virtuous, honorable, and upright state of being, empowering the possessor to effectively function in the expansion and advancement of the kingdom of God, creating an opportunity for other people to experience the enjoyment of a kingdom lifestyle.
What's the key to that? What's the keys to being righteous?
There are three keys. Well, we can call them keys, but since we're doing laws, we can call them laws.
Okay.
3 laws of righteous: respectable, good, rational, just, and right. Virtuous.
Oh, so right is not about having more facts. It's about the virtue in what you're doing.
Right.
It's kind of like arguing with your significant other. What good is that doing you? Even if you feel like you're right and she feel like she 100% right. Y'all just arguing. That's not helping the situation at all. So at some point, somebody, if not both people, need to be righteous and regulated by integrity and grace and saying, you know what? You're right. You're right. Because we're not going anywhere. We're not going to argue anymore about this. And we're not going to agree to disagree. But I'll get into that in a minute. Now we're talking about God's righteousness, not self-righteousness. You know there's a difference from that, right?
There is a difference.
There's a difference. So if we're talking about I'll talk about the righteousness of God. I'll let you talk about self-righteousness
Okay.
for obvious reasons. But anyway, God said it like this. Well, Jesus, you know what the funny thing about this? I'm going to talk about the righteousness of God. He's going to talk about self-righteousness. But Jesus said all of this. These are all the words of Jesus. So Matthew 6:33, seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and he will give you everything you need. See, that harkens back to the scripture in John where we were talking about what we ask for, he will give us. Well, this is the reason why he'll give it to us, because we're asking with the righteousness of God. Matthew 13:43 says, then the righteousness will shine like the sun in their Father's kingdom. Anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. Righteousness will shine.
Yeah, and talking about self-righteousness, Matthew 5:20, Jesus says, but I warn you, unless your righteousness is better than the righteousness of the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. And then it says in chapter 23, verse 28, outwardly, you look like righteous people, but inwardly, your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness.
Hypocrisy. Well, that's a big one. That's a big key to self-righteousness, because self-righteousness makes you believe you're so morally superior just because of you feel that way. You know what I'm saying? And not because you godly, but because you feel that way. Somehow that makes you morally superior to the next person that's stuck up high on the horse, if you will. But the thing about righteousness, justice, here's the thing, man. People, when they feel like they have rights, they do stuff like that lady did. And they come out there, but that's a pseudo boldness. That's fake boldness, because that's boldness fueled by adrenaline, right? She felt bold in that moment. People that want to be right, they feel bold because they feel like they know all the facts and you can't prove them wrong. Though a lot of times we argue with a lot of fallacies like we talked about last week. But when you're operating in righteousness, you're bold as a lion because you're righteous. Not because you're self-righteous, but because God, you have the righteousness of God behind you. And guess what? There is no higher being than that. So if you got the righteousness of God, you can walk boldly as a lion because you know God got you. As we've told you, God got you. So we got a definition for kingdom lions. Kingdom lions are leaders inspired, ordained, and nurtured for success. Leaders inspired, ordained, and nurtured for success. Lion is a developing leader whose training will result in courageous, successful exploits in the expansion and advancement of the kingdom of God and for experiencing enjoyment of a kingdom lifestyle. Those are the lions that we're talking about. That's how we can walk. We can walk bold as leaders. And please believe we're all leaders. We can walk boldly because our training will result in success in the exploit. Training myself not to respond to that nonsense made that situation successful. Because had I not gone through that, constantly dealing with myself on those issues, there's no way that ends like that. There's no way. What are those laws? What's the laws of lions?
Well, there are three, and there's usually a pattern here. There's always three, but the three laws are courageous, brave, confident, fearless, and committed, steadfast. So you have to ask yourself, are you a lion or are you a Karen? It's okay. So in Proverbs 28:1, it says, the wicked run away when no one is chasing them, but the godly are as bold as lions.
Oh, I gotta stop you right there. I gotta stop you. I didn't even mean for this gas station story to take precedence here. But look at this scripture and look at what happened. When you're wrong, do you remember how I said she should have came back in there and found me and apologized? But no, she done jumped in her car and was getting ready to ride on off into the sunset and asked my dad to apologize to me like a coward, running away when I wasn't chasing her out this door, running away when no one is chasing. But see, I could walk out the store boldly because I knew I knew that I had acted as godly as I possibly could in that situation. And see that scripture, when I hear that speaks right to that situation, man. But you know what I was thinking about? What about lions? We need to talk about what about lions, uh, some characteristics of it, so that we can understand how being righteous ties into that.
Well, lions are pretty cool. I will say that. That's one characteristic. They're cool. Okay. But, they're also considered to be the king of the beasts, even though they are smaller in size than the tiger.
Did y'all know that? I didn't know that. I thought lions were bigger than tigers. Maybe it's because of the mane. Maybe that's why I think that it makes them look bigger.
Maybe.
So the reason why I like when you said that is because it's not their size that makes them brave and bold, because they're not the biggest beast out there. They can walk boldly because they know what they got in them.
Yeah.
And that's how, if we're righteous, we know what we have in us, and that's why we can walk boldly. Oh man, I better slow down. I feel a message coming.
We better hurry up and get
go
this
ahead.
done.
Yeah, you better go ahead. You better go and take the mic.
Lions are considered social creatures. They live in prides with each other, but they are loners in the big picture, kind of like how we go to church, but we're considered to be separate from everything else going on. We share that with lions.
Mm-hmm.
And they will fight when the need arises. They won't hesitate. They're going to go after you. If you provoke them, if anything provokes a lion, it's going to attack you.
Try Jesus. Not me. Okay, anyway.
Oh, God. They're brave. They're very protective. And they hunt.
And I know people saying, well, we don't hunt. Oh, yes, we do. We hunting souls, man. We out here hunting souls for the kingdom. We're absolutely hunting on it. We should be. We should be. Speaking of boldness as a lion, this show is brought to you again by our first repeat sponsor. You know what? I don't even need the sheet for it because I remembered. Love is a Spirit dating app. Now remember, the last time we told you some examples of the pickup lines you could get from the dating app. We got like 150,000 lines, but now we're going to show you how they work in the field. So we have one of our correspondents out in the field, and he's delivering some of these lines for you. Just check it out. Love is a Spirit dating app.
Girl, it ain't your booty, it's your bountiful praise. I saw you popping. I saw it in the back. I thought you was twerking, but you was churching. That's all it was. I saw you in a dream. I think it was you. Hold on. Father, was it her? Was it? Oh, okay. He said it was somebody else, but I saw you in a dream. We were supposed to be together. All right, let me pray for you real quick. Let it go. Girl, you looking dirty. You ever been baptized? Huh? You look undefiled. Let me undefile you real quick. Huh? I can do that. I can do that if you need me to. I can baptize you, put you down, and bring you back up. That's what you do. We lay prostrate. You look like a Delilah. Let me be your Samson. Strong. I can be strong for you. Just don't cut nothing, all right? I already got a fade, but I can be strong if you need me to be.
Now, that's how you get Mrs. Brown.
That is definitely not how you get
Oh, that's Mrs. how you're going to get it. You don't listen to this Love is a Spirit dating app, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to be Mr. Brown lonely by yourself for a long time. But anyway, somebody tell Justice in the chat that he need to listen to that.
Somebody tell him in the chat that, you know what, we're just going to take you off sponsors forever. I thought I made that determination with our producer here.
It's clear you don't have that power. Well, now we know who has the power. But you know what? Here's the reality of being righteous, because this is the pinnacle, obviously, right? This is our goal. Not having rights necessarily, not being right necessarily, but being righteous. And see, the righteous know that the name of the Lord is their strong tower where they can run in and be safe. That reminds me of a song, but I'm not going to get into that. But being righteous is not always so easy. It's just not. We can still fall short, and we need to seek safety in that shelter. right? Remember, old bold Peter got scared and denied Jesus 3 times. But Jesus forgave him, and he found his voice and became that lion for Christ. What does the prophet Isaiah say about lions, Justice?
The prophet Isaiah in chapter 31, verse 4 said, "But this is what the Lord has told me. When a strong, young lion stands growling over a sheep it has killed, it is not frightened by the shouts and noise of a whole crowd of shepherds. In the same way, the Lord of heaven's armies will come down and fight on Mount Zion."
Now, you think about that. When a lion stand over a kill, he ain't concerned about you. He ain't concerned about what you talking about. Go, lion. Shoot. Ain't nobody, them lions ain't listening to you. Your dog won't even listen to you when they stand over their meal. Go ahead. Just try this. Don't try this. Don't. I said don't. Don't try this. But try it. Think about trying it. Just reach towards your dog food when they eating and try to take it out their mouth if you want to. Give them a piece of meat and try to pull it back and see what happens to you. Don't do it, especially if you got a big dog. Your little toy dog, you probably do it and not much happens. But I bet you'll be surprised at the dog's reaction. Because when you dealing with an animal, especially a lion, and they're killed, oh man. But did you see the prophet said that's the same way the army of the Lord will come down and fight? That's the backing we have. That's why being righteous is so important. That's why it is.
Right, and this kind of ties what we're talking about. I don't know why my leg's so itchy. This kind of ties what we're talking about. Was it last week we talked about recovery and transformation?
Mm-hmm. That reminds me of something.
Anyway. Part of our assignment is knowing when to do the right thing. I'm gonna spoil this for you. It's all the time.
Oh, okay.
It's like Joel Osteen. I know you kind of hating on Joel a little bit last week. But you know what he said? He said everyone should find someone to bless and something good to do for someone every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know, that's one thing you can take away from Joel Osteen. But that's why we have to live, I'm not saying you got to buy somebody's lunch every day. You got to go mow somebody's lawn every day, but just see with your eyeballs for a moment other people instead of just yourself. Because I used to struggle with that a lot.
Used to?
Yeah, used to. But now I kind of see, because it kind of goes back to that training thing you said.
Mm-hmm. You
have to train yourself, discipline yourself to be righteous.
Yeah.
And some of that training came from my parent. A lot of that training came from my parents.
Speak on it.
They trained me, like, for example, my dad always telling me, open the door for ladies, always. And, I'm like, why? Why do they need me to open the door for them? It's 2020 now. Women can do anything except for open doors, apparently. But it wasn't about that. It's just common chivalry. It's just gentlemanly to open the door for a lady. And eventually I got the message.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you just got to keep pushing through to become that righteous lion that's already inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also important as leaders, because we're all leaders.
Yeah, we already established that we are all leaders.
Right. Like what I said, nobody likes a unjust and unrighteous leader. Not even God. We talked about Proverbs 29:2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. And so make sure that you are actively, training yourself.
Hey, wait a minute. That was King James. You don't usually go to King James. I'm proud of you, man.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead,
sure.
man. I'm sorry.
I can preach on that if you want me to. The Bible said. But anyways, because you see, you don't think I can go there, did you? I see you. Yeah, so make sure you're actively trying to do that. And the definition of righteous had integrity, excellence in it. You want to make sure that you're honest. You want to make sure that you're doing everything in excellence. And I know I got a long way to go too. So we're in this together. But
Amen.
Eventually we're going to get there.
Amen. And sometimes we run from the idea of speaking up on what's right, which is another form of righteousness, because we're afraid of our reputation. So one thing we got to remember, though, even if you're simply silent in situations in which you could stand up, nobody else might know, but you still know. And that's your conscience is there. And it's going to beat you up a little bit because you know the right thing to do. One thing we inherently know is the right thing. And, sometimes we try to solely stand on facts because we fear standing boldly on faith. Remember, facts are what they are. They are facts, but they are not necessarily the truth. Your faith will tell you the truth. And that's the difference between being right and being righteous. Being righteous is based on faith. Being right is based on facts. Righteousness is better than just being right, because the effort to merely being right can leave you ultimately on the wrong side of things if you depend on facts and not the truth. All right. Having natural rights is not something that's truly unalienable, but having kingdom rights very much is. And we already went into detail on why that is. But the big thing about it is nobody can strip you from what God gave you. Not one person. But that's what we wanted to share with you today about rights, folks. But we want you to, as we get ready to close, we want you to pray for us. Again, this is one of those topics that wasn't necessarily easy for us to get into. You touch on a lot of sensitive things, but that's what we're about. This is season 2, and we have to talk about what's real out here in this world. And then once you pray for us, please like the channel. Like the video. Hit that thumbs up, like it, smash it down, and then share it. Share that link on your social media platforms, and then subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. If you just joined us for the first time or the second time and you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And then tell somebody, word of mouth, tell somebody about it. Now, we're going to do our closing words with a few quotes from some influential people. Justice, why don't you go first?
Well, the first quote comes from my favorite Democrat, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He says, "Freedom means the supremacy of human rights everywhere. Our support goes to those who struggle to gain those rights and keep them. Our strength is our unity of purpose. To that high concept, there can be no end save victory."
See, that's about being right. That's not about, that's about doing what's right. That's not just about being right. And that's what FDR is talking there. The second quote comes from James Baldwin. It says, "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist." And boy, is that ever more prevalent than right now.
And the last quote, certainly not the least quote, comes from a very influential author out of Flint, Michigan. His name is Marcellus C. Miller. Okay. He says, "Agreeing to disagree is a misnomer. If we agree to disagree, by definition, we agree to not walk together." I wonder who that is.
Wow, whoever said that was on something.
Yeah.
That's deep. Because see, two can't walk together except they be agreed.
Exactly.
So, wow, agreeing to disagree is not what you want to do. Not what you want to do. Well, folks, thank you. Thank you for coming out, paying attention to us, staying with us. If you made it to this point in the video, you deserve a break. So until next time, we'll see you. God bless you.
And I got the vest this time.